Hi there, it's Dr. Christy Harder. Hope you're doing really well today. This is day 4, the last day of connecting to your foods. And I am on here a couple hours early. We are having terrible storms in my area and they're only supposed to get worse through the day. So I wanted to make sure that I was able to give you guys the content today that I wanted to without internet interruptions, because generally it does happen that I have internet interruptions if there's a storm. So I apologize, but I just wanted to make sure that this got to you guys today instead of having the technical difficulties just derange us a little bit. So anyway, so if you have been following along, this is day 4, connecting to your foods. We're talking about an elimination diet program, what that looks like, what that means, why you would ever do it, how you would do it, and what kind of benefits that you might get for your health for actually having done an elimination diet. So the very first day, I introduced the 4-step process that I have for elimination diets, and I just wanted to go back over that a minute because honestly, the process is something that I use for not just an elimination diet. I use it for a lot of different things that I deal with patients in health. I use it with stress and stress management. I use it with hormone balancing. So it's a process that you can kind of take those 4 steps and switch and change them to most any kind of symptom or condition or anything that you're trying to shift with your health. So the first step is elimination. And we talked about on the very first day, elimination and why you would do it and how you would do it. And, you know, really the crux of it is there are 2 big reasons why you would do an elimination diet. One would be if you have symptoms. So if you have changes in your energy, if you have changes in your digestion, maybe you get bloated after you eat every time, maybe you have gas, or maybe you have reflux in the middle of the night. Maybe you have changes in your hormones that aren't really something that should be coming up right now. You know, maybe you've got changes in your sleep or changes in your energy. So all of those would be a reason why, with lots and lots of patients that don't even have digestive issues, I will actually do an elimination because I feel like food is just the foundation of everything that we should be doing with our health. And it's really important to get that piece clicked in, to get that part so you know exactly what your food's doing for you and how it's helping you to manage your health overall. Then we talked about how you would do an elimination. And for food, it's pretty simple. I mean, the process isn't that simple, but basically you take foods that are hyperallergenic and you eliminate them from between 2 and 6 weeks. And I mean, that's the elimination. And it matters whether or not you're doing an elimination based on just the totality of hyperallergenic foods or whether you're using blood work that shows you what foods you're reactive to, and then you base the elimination diet off of that lab result. So either way, it works. The second day, we talked about the education part. So the second step in the process is all about education. And it comes from both sides. It comes from either your guide or your coach or your dietitian or your doctor who's leading you through these steps. And it also comes from you because you have to discover what it is that your body feels best with, what foods are really great for you, what things feel really well for you in your health. So it comes from all of those sides. We also, during the education day, we talked about malabsorption a lot. Basically, that's when your food doesn't absorb whatever food you're eating, whether it's super healthy or whether it's not very healthy. Your body has to absorb the vitamins, the minerals, the nutrients from that food in order for it to become your cells. And when you don't have good absorption, you can't get the things that you need from your food. And a lot of things cause malabsorption. One of the biggest culprits is food allergies, food reactivity. Sensitivities and allergies can both cause inflammation that cause malabsorption. And not being able to absorb those micronutrients actually leads to symptoms. So you can't make good energy, you can't make neurotransmitters to have good moods, you can't make good hormones if you don't have that absorption, because you need all of those vitamins and minerals for cofactors in the pathways that make whatever it is your body's trying to make. So that's pretty important. And one thing that I didn't talk about on day 2 that kind of hit me this morning was that I didn't talk about leaky gut. And we probably have all heard this, terminology of a leaky gut. Oh, you probably have a leaky gut if you've had digestive upset or digestive issues, or you feel like you're not absorbing. And I wanted to explain that a little bit because it's kind of a misnomer, because if your gut was actually leaking into your body, then it's an emergency. So it's something that happens when you do have malabsorption, when you do have inflammation. What happens is you're supposed to have these really, really, really tightly packed cells that line your whole entire digestive tract from your lips and your mouth all the way through the digestive tract to the end. And when you have constant or chronic inflammation, what can happen is those really tight junctions that are supposed to be protecting things from moving in or out without their transport carriers or without, the barriers that are supposed to stop them, then you can have bigger proteins from food that leak into your bloodstream that aren't supposed to be leaking. Well, those leaking proteins can cause reactivity in the immune system, and that can be part of why you're reacting to foods, and not necessarily that you're allergic or you're sensitive to that food. It's more about that your body is seeing that particular protein as foreign. And so every time you eat it, your body's like, whoa, wait a minute, hold on. That's not supposed to be here. So let's make an antibody against it, just like it would with a virus or a bacteria. And so that you're protected, so that your body isn't going to have the full reactivity to it that it could. So anyway, I thought I was remiss in talking about the leaky gut explanation. So I wanted to add that little piece of education for you guys so that you understood what that terminology meant, and that allergies can cause that. Something else that can cause it is overexposure to foods. So we have talked about variety in foods and making sure that you're getting enough variety so that all of the vitamins and minerals, all the big complex of vitamins and minerals can actually be absorbed, and the competition that happens between the minerals isn't at play when we're talking about whether you're deficient or excess with your vitamins and minerals. So what we talked about yesterday was the third step, which is experimentation. So experimenting with your foods after an elimination is key. It's the very best, most important piece of this equation, because it gives you all of the knowledge about what your foods are doing internally, and also how you feel with those foods. So what your body feels like, what your energy feels like. So this experimentation phase, it can last a while if you're, kind of being meticulous and kind of doing subsets of the categories of foods that we abstained from and avoided for 4 weeks. And you can also do it pretty easily. So if you feel like you have foods that are okay in your system, adding those back in first, increasing the variety of foods in your diet is super important. And then if you have other things like dairy products, for example, that might not be okay, there are kind of subcomponents of dairy, for example, that you can challenge. So there's cow milk dairy, there's sheep milk dairy, there is goat milk dairy, and all of them have different categories as well. So those three animals have different proteins that come into the milk that they give. And so the proteins are seen differently by your body. And also there are different proteins in dairy itself. And so you could be reactive to lactose, you could be reactive to whey or casein. And so if you divide dairy up into its individual aspects, then it can take a little bit longer time to challenge those foods, because you don't want to challenge, raw dairy like ice cream and have a reaction and go, okay, now I can't have dairy at all, because you could have aged dairy like an aged cheddar cheese that doesn't have much lactose in it, and that might be totally fine for you. So the experimentation phase is my favorite. It's the phase that gives us the answers to how we feel, and the tolerance that our body creates, our immune system. So I just talked about kind of the leaky gut situation. The tolerance that the immune system makes when we are exposed to foods that aren't supposed to be there, that's pretty important. So a lot of times I'll talk to patients about, what food do you think might be causing a symptom? Or do you feel well when you eat this or that? Or do you not feel well when you eat this or that? And a lot of times it's hard to tell, because one, your body can take up to 72 hours to have a reactivity to a food. So, so you eat something on Wednesday and then on Friday you have a reaction to it. How in the world would you ever be able to tell that that's the cause? That would be really hard. The other thing is tolerance. So if you eat a food over and over and over again, your body does generally build up a tolerance because you've been making antibodies. Your immune system just makes the antibodies so that it protects you. And when we do the elimination, basically we're clearing out a lot of that tolerance that your immune system has made. And we're kind of starting from a blank slate, which is great because it'll show you, when you eat a food on the challenge day, it'll show you exactly your accurate and most true response to the food, instead of like confusing it and having all of these different foods and not knowing and not doing it systematically. It can be it can be a much cleaner way to figure out what foods work and what foods don't work. So so the experimentation phase, I think, is the most essential phase. It gives you the knowledge that you need in order to know what choices that you can make, so that you have this ability to know your foods forever and ever, that your foods are your friend and you can figure out which ones that you can have on your plate all the time and which ones that you can't. The fourth phase in this process is empowerment. And I feel like the fourth step is really kind of after you start challenging. It's not so much that it's a step, but it's a new reality. And I feel like this part is so key for so many patients, because the empowerment that an elimination diet gives you is something that you can't get in a whole lot of other ways, because it gives you the ability to really rein in your health, to know the things that you can have in your toolbox in order to feel better if you're not feeling great, or sustain your health when you are feeling great. It gives you power. The choices give you that ability. They give you that power so that you are forever and ever and ever in the know about what feels good to you and what works in your diet. You get to discover how your body reacts to foods. You get to discover what may be working. You get to discover what's not working. Something that you absolutely adore and you eat almost every day could be the problem with your digestion or your energy or your sleep. So how great would it be to find those one or two foods that are causing your symptoms, that you could just make that shift that won't be too crazy or too hard or too intense, and you eliminate the things that don't make you feel good, and then you take your level of health from, its baseline now up to, a much higher standard. Like, how amazing would that feel? How amazing would it be if long-term symptoms that you've had could be gone just by your food choices and just by making sure that you know what you're eating is something that your body really reacts to well, it absorbs well, it doesn't create inflammation. And what if you were able to manage your health just simply by putting things on your plate that were better for your body? And how empowering would it be just knowing that you have control of that you have control of your own choices, and that it's something that is easily done once you are in the know, once you have that reactivity or the non-reactivity that happens when you challenge. That choice that you get afterwards, that empowerment that you get, is so profound. And I have seen thousands and thousands of patients that have gone through this type of elimination program, and really it makes such a big difference. And I am quite certain that a lot of these patients don't always maintain their avoidance of certain foods, but I will tell you that probably 85% of patients, when I speak with them over and over and over again about what they're eating, how they're eating, whether or not they're eating their allergenic foods, the majority of them, 85% I would say, of patients are not eating those foods. And they're figuring out what works best for their health through that process. And the gains that you can get are so rewarding in so many different ways. I mean, having better energy just from the get-go, just from not having as much inflammation in your body. Because basically, when you have a lot of inflammation, everything's affected. Everything's different. Your organs of elimination are affected. You're not able to sweat as much. You're not able to use your kidneys to get rid of your toxins as much. You're not able to form well-developed bowel movements as well. Your liver's not able to process all of the different things it has to process as well. So as a consequence, you can get all of these symptoms, but by just eliminating the foods that potentially cause these things it's huge. I mean, you can get so many gains. Your energy can be better, your sleep, and people question me when I say your sleep can be better just by your foods. And it's true. I've seen it happen time and time and time again, because we're not just working on the things that are helping you to sleep, but by lowering inflammation, getting rid of things that aren't serving you, it helps you to make hormones better. It helps you to make neurotransmitters better. It helps you to make energy better. Your mitochondria work better. So all of those things can be related to how you're sleeping as well, which is super, super important. So your hormones are one of the things that I talk to patients about a lot. Patients that have difficulty with conception of pregnancies, patients that have hard time with PMS symptoms if they're having their menstrual cycles, patients who are having difficulty with premenopausal symptoms or postmenopausal symptoms. I always look at the connection between the digestive health, your food intake, and how the hormones are being balanced, because you have to have low inflammation. You have to have good liver efficiency if you're going to have balanced hormones. Not just your sex hormones either. So not just estradiol, not just progesterone, not just testosterone, DHEA, but also for your thyroid hormones as well. Because we have to have that low inflammation in order to manage the thyroid hormones as well. That thyroid also relates to stress. So stress management can be one of the gains from knowing your foods and eliminating the foods that cause inflammation. Because the way that we manage stress in our bodies, it matters in relationship to how much inflammation you have. And chronic stress causes lots and lots of cortisol, and lots of cortisol causes more inflammation. And the more inflammation that you have, the harder your liver has to work, which causes all of the hormones to be disrupted. And it's kind of this domino effect that happens. And so if we can clear those things up, if we can figure out what foods work for us, we can manage our stress better even. And it's probably worth saying, even though I might not have to, but digestion is one of the huge wins when people are eating foods that are great for them, because you can absorb your vitamins and minerals better. You can digest more easily. You can move your food through more efficiently, more effectively, and you'll feel better digestively, not having stomach pains or bloating or gas or changes in your bowel movements. So all of those things are really important. All of those things are gains that I have seen patients have. The other things that, might not be as common, skin, clearer skin happens. Decrease in acne, that happens. Hair growth, that happens because your vitamins and minerals are being absorbed much better. That the skin and hair growth can be much improved. Joint pain, joint aches, muscle pains, kind of all over general body aches and inflammation can be much improved. And I've even seen in a couple patients vision changes for the better. And if you think about it, it makes sense, because if we're having overall inflammation, it can be anywhere on any nerve. And so if your optic nerves are affected by your inflammation, that can be a thing too. So lots and lots of reasons to figure out what foods that work for you the very best. I believe an elimination diet program is the very best tool that I can offer patients for figuring out how and what foods to connect to have on their plates all the time, every day. I've seen it work with many, many, many patients. I've seen it work in my own life many times. There are foods, I wanted to just talk to you guys about the foods that I decide to eat when it's worth it. So I have celiac disease, and I didn't find that out until in the past, I think 7 years. And it wasn't, I didn't have a reaction to wheat when I ate it. It just wasn't like I would eat a piece of sourdough toast and it was totally fine. But my autoimmune antibodies kept coming up positive and nothing else was showing up. And so I did a deeper dive. I figured out that it was my celiac antibodies that were elevated. And I never knew that, because all of my elimination diets, I never had any kind of reactivity to gluten, ever. Like, I just never had anything. But I've been avoidant of gluten for, I think it's been 7 years, but I can't remember for sure. My memory, my timeline's not that great with those kind of things. So since that time, my digestion has gotten so much better that I actually can add more foods back in than I used to be able to. Generally with my elimination diets, I would have so much reactivity to so many different things that it was really difficult, and I had a pretty limited diet. Once I figured out that gluten was kind of the main thing, it took me a little bit of time to heal, because that that brush border that I was talking about yesterday that helps with absorption and helps to move your food through your digestive tract, that gets really affected by celiac and by other allergies as well. So now I can choose my foods that cause me to have symptoms a little bit more often when I feel like it's worth it. So it's tomato season, and you've probably heard me say, if you've watched anything on my Instagram stories, that tomatoes are one of my favorite foods. I grow them in my garden every year. I love fresh tomatoes out of the garden. I just picked 2 this morning. They're wonderful and beautiful. And I choose to eat them when they're in season and when they come out of my garden because I just love them. I adore them. My grandfather used to make them. He used to grow them in his garden, and it's a nostalgia for me as well as an enjoyment for my taste buds. So that's something that I choose. I know what happens. I get puffy bags under my eyes, and I get sometimes, but I don't as often now, some flaky skin on my eyebrows. But it's worth it to me when I can have a delicious tomato sandwich on gluten-free bread. It makes me really happy, and I choose it when it's worth it. Potatoes are another thing that I choose when they're worth it. Interestingly enough, Ruffles, which I know is not a great choice, having potato chips in my diet, I choose them once or twice a week maybe. I don't have many at a time. They don't actually have any kind of sensitivity or symptom. I don't know why. Maybe they're not real potatoes that are in there. I don't know, but I love the taste of them, and I have a couple here and there that are really delicious. But I will have, smashed potatoes at our holiday dinners, mostly for Thanksgiving and Christmas. I typically am in charge of making smashed potatoes. Everybody in my family loves them. Every time I make them, no matter how many I make, they are just gone. And so when I make smashed potatoes, I will eat smashed potatoes. My fingers get swollen like almost immediately, and my rings get really tight, and it lasts about 24 hours. It's not really that comfortable. I get bloated, but during those holidays, it's worth it to me. I don't eat that many, but I know what it is that I'm doing. I know the consequence. And so I'm not a victim to my food. I'm not wondering what the heck is going on because I already know. The other thing is soy sauce. I like soy sauce. I use tamari because it's the gluten-free version of soy sauce. But, if I'm going to have sushi, I love sushi. If I'm going to have sushi, I'm going to have just a little bit of soy sauce with my sushi. If I have some kind of Thai dish and I make a sauce with soy sauce, I'm gonna have some soy sauce. Again, I get some swelling, but I know it's a consequence and I'm not a victim, which is nice. And the thing I like about an elimination diet the very best is that my patients don't have to look at every trending diet and try it out to see if it's the one that's going to work for them. They don't have to wonder what foods are okay for them or not, because the long-term consequences of knowing your food, this isn't about weight loss. It's not about one particular thing. This is about longevity of your health over time. And weight seems to balance out. Hormones seems to balance out. Energy and sleep and all of the things, the digestion, they all seem to balance out once you know what's on your plate. Now, I will say the caveat to this is that if someone has an autoimmune issue, if someone has other health issues that might not be allergies, maybe they have parasites, or maybe they have bacteria or fungal infections, then that's the case where I would do different testing and not just rely on an elimination program in order to figure out what foods are best for someone, because it could be something deeper. But for most of my patients, the elimination program is the thing that I do that works really, really well. Now, if you guys have enjoyed watching for the past 4 days, I appreciate it so, so much. I love talking about the elimination diet. I have a 6-week program coming out starting tomorrow. It's called Whole Body Reset, and it's an elimination diet program. I have an ebook that goes with it that has all the recipes, has all the menu plans, has all the grocery lists for an elimination program. You can also just buy the ebook and not go through the 6-week program. So if you're feeling led to try something, if you're feeling like you need to connect to your foods, like it's something that's worth your while, check out that program, check out my ebook, and see if it's something that feels right for you. I'll put a couple more posts for you up on the Facebook group so that you guys have access to looking at more information on the Reset program. And I'm also going to put up some links to YouTube, because I have had a couple patients that don't have Facebook that wanted to watch these videos, and really the only way that I could do it was to put those on YouTube as well. So if you guys want to look at the videos on YouTube, or you want to share the link with anybody who's not in the Facebook group, I'll put that in the Facebook group as well. So if you guys have any questions, please let me know. I so appreciate you being here. I'll check back again, since I came on too early today. I'll check back in on comments and questions and anything that you guys have. Hopefully you're enjoying your day. You have a happy, happy Friday. Thanks so much.